Good evening. Tonight, let's discuss Nannie Helen Burroughs, an educator, orator, religious leader, civil rights activist, feminist, and businesswoman from Orange, Virginia. Burroughs opened doors in religious and educational institutions, jobs, and society in general to African Americans, particularly for women and girls. Her accomplishments crisscross race, religion, gender, and age. Burroughs's works were known across the globe. Nonetheless, she is virtually missing from history, at least for most of us. Burroughs has a lot to teach us from her inspiring vision and achievements, critical to enhancing the lives of today's society at large, and particularly our young people. Burroughs was born on May 2nd, 1879. Her father was the son of an enslaved man who had bought his freedom. Her mother was formerly enslaved. After her father died, the 5-year-old and her mother moved to Washington, D.C. in search of better educational opportunities. In 1898, Burroughs graduated with honors from M Street Colored High School, now Paul Laurence Dunbar High School. It was among the nation's first high schools for African Americans. Among her teachers were suffragist and activist Mary Church Terrell and Anna Julia Cooper, who significantly influenced her life. In the 1890s, Burroughs unsuccessfully applied for a D.C. public school teaching position. Her rejection may have been due to the prejudice of colorism, a preference for lighter skinned staff. Put simply, historians say, the black people doing the hiring believed her to be too black. Jess McHugh denied a teaching job for being too black. She started her own school and a movement. When Burroughs did not get the job, she moved to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and became associate editor of the Christian Banner, a Baptist newspaper. Burroughs returned to Washington, D.C., and fruitlessly tried to get a civil service position, even though she had done well on the exam. In 1900, she accepted a position in Louisville, Kentucky as secretary of the Foreign Mission Board of the National Baptist Convention, NBC. Founded in 1895, the NBC USA Incorporated is the largest African American organization in the country. Burroughs organized the Women's Industrial Club, which offered reasonably priced lunches to area office workers and evening classes in typing, shorthand, bookkeeping, and sewing for its members. The night courses became so popular that Burroughs ultimately hired teachers, releasing her to supervise the program. Burroughs was just 21 years old when she earned national renown after delivering a speech, How the Sisters Are Hindered from Helping, at the 1900 National Baptist Convention Annual Conference in Richmond, Virginia. The following is an excerpt, and then part 2 will be in the comments. Part 2. Who's that young girl? A man in the audience is quoted as saying, Why don't she sit down? She's always talking. She's just an upstart. Burroughs had a ready answer for him. I might be an upstart, but I am just starting up. Burroughs might have been called an upstart because she led the organization in the struggle for women's rights, anti-lynching laws, desegregation, and industrial education for black women and girls. Most people, however, considered her an organizational genius. At the helm of the National Baptist Women's Convention for more than 6 decades, Burroughs remained a tireless and intrepid champion of black pride and women's rights. She was elected elected secretary of the National Baptist Women's Convention, the new auxiliary to the Men's Convention, as an inspirational speaker. Burroughs became a dynamic force within the organization. She served as secretary until 1948, whereupon she became president. At the 1902 Women's Convention of National Baptists, Burroughs remarked, "The training of Negro women is absolutely necessary, not only for their own salvation and the salvation of the race, but because the hour in which we live demands it. If we lose sight of the demands of the hour, we blight our hopes of progress." Burroughs studied business in 1902 and received an honorary M.A. degree from Kentucky's Eckstein Norton University in 1907. After she was denied that D.C. teaching job, she later wrote, "An idea was struck out of the suffering of that disappointment, that I would some day have a school here in Washington that school politics had nothing to do with, and that would give all sorts of girls a fair chance. It came to me like a flash of light, and I knew I was to do that thing when the time came." Denied a teaching job for being too black, she started her own school and a movement. Burroughs recommended her idea for a school to the National Baptist Convention, the NBC. After 6 years in the planning phase, the NBC purchased 6 acres of land in northeast Washington, D.C. She obtained money from within the black community, but did not have united support. Virginia native, educator, and reformer Booker T. Washington did not think black Washingtonians would donate to the project, while others opposed training women beyond domestic work. Burroughs's motivational speaking helped her raise enough money for the school. Although there were some large donations, most of it came in small amounts from black women and children. The National Trade and Professional School for Women and Girls, later the Nannie Helen Burroughs School, opened in 1909 with the 26-year-old Burroughs as the first president. It was the country's first school to offer vocational training for African American females. She wanted every student to become the fiber of a steady morale, industrious and intellectual woman. Burroughs embraced the school's motto, "We specialize in the wholly impossible." She led the small faculty in teaching students a curriculum on the high school and junior college level. Burroughs thought black women could become self-sufficient wage owners. Not only did the school teach domestic arts and secretarial skills, it also offered innovative courses for women like shoe repair, printing, barbering, and gardening. There was also there was an importance placed on grammar and language. Burroughs established the Department of Negro History to impart racial pride in students. Unlike most of her generation, she thought industrial and classical education went hand in hand. By the end of its first year, the school had 31 students. 25 years later, over 2,000 women from the U.S., Africa, and Caribbean basin attended the school. Burroughs was the principal until her death in 1961. 3 years later, the institution was renamed the Nannie Burroughs School. In 1991, the school was named a National Historic Landmark. Part 3 will be linked in the comments. Part 3. Burroughs helped lead the National Association of Wage Earners, organized in 1921. The association aimed to systemize and raise living conditions for women, especially migrant workers, and to foster and inspire efficacy in African American workers. The aim was to uplift domestic service to the level of a science field. Records indicate the association especially focused on Negro women engaged in domestic and personal service occupations in order to provide necessities for their families and raise their own standard of living. Burroughs was president, serving alongside other eminent club women like Vice President Mary McLeod Bethune and Maggie Lena Walker. Their emphasis was more on public interest education forums than trade union activities. As a sought after speaker and writer, Burroughs advanced her belief in self help and self reliance for blacks. In a July 1927 article for Southern Workman, she urged self pride. No race is richer in soul, quality, and color than the Negro. Someday he will realize it and glorify them. He will popularize black. She was candid in her views about how black men treated black women. She wrote in a 1933 column of a black publication, "Stop making slaves and servants out of our women. The Negro mother is doing it all. The women are carrying the burden. The main reason is that the men lack manhood and energy. The men ought to get down on their knees to the Negro woman. They've made possible all we have." Burroughs championed women's suffrage. After the passage of the 19th Amendment, she worked to register women in 1920. Burroughs was appointed by the administration of Herbert Hoover to chair a committee related to Negro housing for the White House Conference of 1931. She thought cooperatives offered black communities a sustainable option to the destitutions of the Great Depression. In 1936, she co-founded Cooperative Industries, a self-help agricultural and consumer cooperative in Washington, D.C. As the cooperative president, Burroughs used her national training school as the co-op's production and manufacturing plant to produce brooms and mattresses. With the help of a grant from the Federal Emergency Relief Administration, Burroughs expanded the co-op with the purchase of agricultural land in Maryland to form an agricultural producer co-op. The co-op provided facilities for multiple services, including a medical clinic and a variety store. In 1933, Burroughs spoke at the Virginia Women's Missionary Union at Richmond with the address, "How White and Colored Women Can Cooperate in Building a Christian Civilization." In the 1900s, Burroughs wrote 12 Things the Negro Must Do. It was republished in 2015 with commentary by Karen Hunter. Burroughs was a published playwright. In 1942, she wrote The Slaptown District Convention. She also wrote Where's My Wandering Boy Tonight? Both are one-act plays for church theatrical groups. The Slaptown District was very popular, requiring numerous printings. In fact, in October 2001, Winston-Salem University's drama department brought the house down with its rendition of the play. At the age of 82, Burroughs died from a stroke in 1961. She defied societal restrictions placed on her gender and race, and her work foreshadowed the main principles of the civil rights movements of the 1960s and the 1970s.